I'm an addict named Rudy. Heroin is definitely part of my problems. I'm grateful to be here. I never know when I'm going to share when I share. I never prepare myself because every time I prepare myself, I always forget when I get up here because it's just crazy. It just happens naturally, right? But I like to read. I like to read a passage from the book before I start. Instead of doing it at the end, because I think that always coincides with what I'm about to speak. Maybe sometimes not. So the passage that I speak is from page 344, and it says, I listened to their stories and found so many areas where we overlapped. Not all deeds, but the feelings of remorse and hopelessness. I learned that alcoholism isn't a sin, it's a disease. Now, I don't know what your substance is. I don't know what your disease is. I don't know what your addiction is, But whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? You take the alcoholism out, it could be heroin, it could be whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Addiction is addiction, right? So I say that because that's part of my story at the very top of it, right? So how I got here, right? I was born here in the United States and I was raised in the Dominican Republic, right? I can share this through learning through some things that I have worked on. I learned that at a very young age, man, I had learned the very first feeling that I learned was the feeling of being abandoned. I was raised with my grandfather, and I didn't know, I didn't have like my mom's and my dad and shit right there next to me, so I always felt like that, not having that love at home, and I always kept that inside. So I was a very quiet kid. I was a very good kid, you know what I'm saying? And I always had love all the way around. But I didn't have that stuff that I really wanted. I had all the materialistic in the world. My father's successful over there in DR. My mother was over here. And American money goes a long way in the Dominican Republic, being a third world country, right? But I had all that, but I didn't have the love that I really wanted. It was my mom's love, and I wanted a dad's love too, And I share this every time, because it's a reminder, I always wanted that Leave It to Beaver family, I wanted the mom and dad, the little brother and everything, right there with me, right? Forward and on, right? When I came over here to the United States, right, I moved into Florida, right? I came from DR, moved over here, and I ended up in Florida. And at that time, my mom said, and my stepdad, they was dealing some stuff, right, that I didn't know what it really was, right? So I was never around them either. So, I had my mom's, but I didn't have my mom once again. I thought, for once, I was going to be very happy because I was with my sister at the time, the oldest of the girl, right? And my mom's was there, and then my stepdad and stuff at the time. And he was cool and everything, but, however, they was always in and out doing all type of trips. And I was going, they were sending me out to SeaWorld, go shopping, all type of places, right? But I wasn't around her once again, right? I didn't know that that's how they were supporting us, right? So that was the life that we was given, right? We lived in a beautiful house, cars, everything, farm, all type of stuff, man, but I didn't have what I really wanted. So I always felt that abandonment, right? So something drastically happened in my family. That's how I ended up over here in this side, in the East Coast, right? In New York, actually. And from there on, we understand over here. I didn't know at the time why really was the reason, right? So, but I know that I ended up going to school, and I had a huge problem, right? I had a huge problem because now I was being adapted, right? Like I said, I grew up in Dominican Republic, so now I'm like 9, 10 years old and shit, and so I came to the United States, and I didn't know how to speak English. I didn't know how to speak English, and I really wanted to fit in, I wanted to be one of the kids and stuff like that. But I didn't know how to communicate, right? And then I was short. I was like 5'2", right? I'm not that big now, but I was shorter, right? And then I only weighed like about 90 pounds and shit. So I was really skinny. I was short, and I didn't know how to speak, right? So I wasn't accepted, right? I wasn't accepted, and I wasn't one of those cool kids. At a very young age, I felt outcast, right? So that being with the other shit that I was suffering inside, right? And I could not express it back then because I didn't even know what it really was, until years later, right? One day, right? Police went inside of a school, right? And they had a little program back then called Dare, right? And they used to go inside the school. They used to go in school and shit, and they used to show like all type of drugs and stuff like that, right? And when they started like showing these stuff, right? I found out that I seen my mother and my stepdad like using these substances, right? And that was my life like really turned around, right? Because I already told you the stuff that I was going through, right? But now I found out that my mother was an addict, right? I didn't know the word addict back then, but I knew that she was doing something that was very embarrassing because all the kids was laughing at everybody else that their mother was crackheads and all type of stuff. Because that's what they used to call them back then, right? And I was like, damn, that's my mother right there. So that was a secret that was eating me alive, right? Because I know that was my mother, So now this woman that already had broke my heart from the very beginning, right? Just continued to break my heart, right? So, slowly but surely, right, I started pulling away, right? Like I told my grandmother, I told all type of people and stuff like that, and I turned my mother in. Because I didn't want my sister and everybody, all my little brothers that was coming after them and shit to suffer the same shit that I was suffering. But I didn't know that. I was just trying to protect them, right? Back then, that's what I was trying to do, just get them out of that environment, right? Because I felt embarrassed. Like, I didn't even want to be around this freaking woman now. I couldn't tell none of the kids because they was always laughing at all these crackheads. And I'm going home to a fucking crackhead back then, right? After I went through that little process, right, I found out and shit that the street is where I found love, right? So at a very young age, man, like I'm talking like 11 years old, man, like I started smoking pot and all type of stuff with the kids outside, man, and everything, man. And they started showing me love, and I was going to other kids' houses where their parents was enabling them and was allowing them to do shit. And then I ran into my aunt where she was just allowing me to do all type of stuff because I was the first one born out of the family. So I was the first nephew, first grandson, first everything. So I was able to do these things, right? And but I really found out that love that I was really searching for, and I found that shit in the streets, right? So what happens is, right, that at a very young age, right, when everybody wanted to be a doctor and be all type of shit, I wanted to be a criminal. So I share that quote, right, because when you hear my story, man, it doesn't mean you have to go to prison or nothing, but you could relate to the suffering and the pain that we go through at a very young age when you start doing some things, right? And at that age, right, I found that love that I thought it was love outside in the streets, right? And from there on, my life just turned around, right? So because I got a little short time, I'm going to go forward and backwards, Just stay with me, right? So from the age of 11, right? Like my first bit was at 12 years old and I came home when I was 15. Like there was no adolescent rehab or none of that shit, right? Like I actually went to DFY. I went to prison for youth, right? From Spofford on then, right? And then I didn't stop going to prison all the way till I was age of 39 years old. I put over 22 years in the New York State Correctional Facility. My addiction to heroin started in prison. So if you got high in prison and you got clean in prison, count your freaking clean time too. If you're clean today, count it too, right? You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't matter if you had 3 years, if you have 5 years, if you have 1 day. Whatever, the only thing that matters is that you're clean today, man. Like cherish that, right? So but through all those years of struggling, right, and that addiction that I caught in there, right, and I would keep coming in and out of prison. Every time that I was outside, right, my addiction was progressing, right, because now I didn't have these barriers, right, that I was doing when I was in there, and I was like limited to getting the supply that I really wanted. So out here in the streets, I really didn't have a care in the world. I didn't have a care in the world because I was devoted to this. Like, when I found, like I tampered with everything, right? But when I found heroin, right, like I had no feelings, right? Like that was my true love, right? Like I really would love to say that I love something else, but I really didn't. But the sad part about it is, right, it was so conflicted, right, because it was a love and hate, because when I sat down by myself and the shit ran out, right, I used to hate my fucking self, man. And I never told nobody that, right? And I got to a place, right, like I was such a chameleon, right, that, I wear 20,000 masks, man. Like I could be anything in the world, man. I could do anything in the world just to get the next motherfucker, man. And literally, man, like I could go anywhere. Like I would shave this shit up, you know what I'm saying? I would shave this up. I would grow dreads and shit. Yeah, I had hair one time, right? And I would be like, you know what I mean? Like all type of shit, right? You know what I'm saying? Because I used to gangbang too, right? I did that too because I felt that love, right? And that's what I did, right? All these stuff that was corrupted, right? Through all these years, man, like I didn't know how to live my life. But every time I was in a fucking cell, right? You know, and you can relate, because when you're in a program, right, and you're sitting there in your room, right, because I got the same feeling when I went to a program at one time, right, you know, you'd be like, damn, what the fuck, like, I don't want to keep doing this shit to myself. But I didn't know how to stop, man. I didn't know how to stop. That's what I thought. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't want to surrender. You know, I didn't want to try new things, right? You know, I heard about AA, I heard about NA, I heard about all type of recovery processes shit that used to be around. The problem was that I was always taking his story and trying to add it onto my shit, and they didn't compare it, because this guy never been to prison like I've been to, and he never shot nobody up, and he never robbed nobody, none of these shit, so he never lived what I've been through. And I never lived on a motherfucking bridge, because I was always going to fucking jail. You know what I'm saying? So I always compare my story to your story, instead of identifying with the feelings and the stuff that I was going through. You know, like, you have the same feelings that I have. Like, that's there's no disputing that. You feel the same way no matter what it is that you're using, right? So to go forward and to end up today, right? I say this, right? In 2009, right? Like, I had a rude awakening, right? 2006, I had a rude awakening, right? I caught a parole violation, right? And my parole officer was like, you know, listen, like, prison doesn't work for you, man. Like, I want to do something for you and shit that's going to change your fucking life, right? And so he goes, yo, give me 28 days and shit, and I send you back home. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So I gave him 28 days, which turned out to be 8 fucking months, right? I went to a 28-day program. Yeah, really, true story. I went to a 28-day program, right? When I was getting ready to go home, they told me, no, you got to go over here. So I ended up in 820 River Street, right? It was 2006, right? You know? I ended up there, right? And so I did everything. You know, I told you at the beginning of my story, I'm a freaking chameleon, right? I grew dressed. I did all type of shit, right? You know what I'm saying? So I ended up to being a chameleon, because I knew everybody there was practicing some type of recovery. Not everybody, but majority of the people. And I was seeing another way of life, right? So I was doing what you was doing, right? And so I went, I got a sponsor, and I did my first step, and I did a second step, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I did all this shit, and I still clean for 6-7 months, right? I still clean. I didn't do recovery. I still clean, right? I didn't know the difference then, right? But I thought I was practicing some shit, right? So I was doing what you guys was doing, right? The problem with that is, right, that when I really don't want to change, shit doesn't really change for shit, right? It just looks good on the outside, right? Like, I could dress all this shit up, but this shit don't mean nothing if I feel like shit inside, right? It only looks good for you, but it doesn't look good for me, man. Because there's days I dress the fuck up, but I feel like shit, right? And you might think I'm alright, but I'm not, right? And y'all know that feeling, right? So that's what was happening, right? Like, I still had some shit inside that I didn't want to share with other people, right? And, you know, I was making everything look good, but it really wasn't good, right? So I ended up completing all that shit, right? And I ended up leaving out of there in 8 months, right? And I thought my life had changed. I thought really my life had changed, man. And I went to fucking I moved from here. I went to Arizona, West Bubblefuck, with my co-defendants and shit that I caught a fake case with, right? Mind you, I caught a case with these people. I was home for one fucking day, and I got caught over here in the fucking highway. I came home one day, right? And I got caught in the highway. And I went right back to prison the same fucking day. Actually, I'm lying, 2 days, right? You know, the following day, right? Because I came home the following day, right? 2 days home and shit. I came right back to prison, right? And so I moved over there to Arizona, because now I'm clean. Now I got a new way of life, right? Because I see all these people have all this lavish shit. I said, shit, I'm cool, right? You know, but what happened was I took myself with me, right? And I didn't practice some things, right, that I really thought I was doing, right? But I was following everybody else. So when I went to Arizona, I said, oh, shit, man, I never tried black tar. I'm fucking over here, man. I'm not bound to nobody. I ain't got no family over here or nothing, man. No parole watching me, no shit, right? So I went and I did it, right? And I said, fuck. I never tried crystal meth. And I went and I did it, right? Right? Because that's what the fuck we do. That's what we do. You don't think we do that? Get caught up in shit and let me throw you in the town and shit. I bet you'll find exactly what the fuck you're looking for. Right? If you're not working on some shit, right? So I was really not working on some shit. I was just pretending I was working on some stuff, right? So it got really drastically, and it got really drastically so quick that I didn't even realize it. I know you could relate. Like that time you'd be like, I'm gonna do it just one more fucking time, right? I got my shit straight. I've been clean for 30 days. Let me use one time. One time. And then I'm gonna go to work tomorrow. Right? I'll go to work tomorrow, I'll go to probation, you know what I mean, get my urine clean, give it up, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 months later, you'll be sitting in the cell back in the fucking rehab like, how the fuck I did this again, right? And that's exactly what happened to me, right? A month and a half later, I was in the fucking highway coming back to New York because I didn't want to get fucking arrested in West Bubblefuck, and I didn't have my family to take care of me out there. See, I'm a family man, right? My family loved me, right? I never hurt my family, right? I never did shit to my family. All my dirt, I did it outside in the street. That's a fucking lie. That's what I thought, man, because every time I got fucking arrested and every time I was out there in the streets, these people were suffering, man. And I didn't know that. And how did I know that, right? Because years down the line, right, forward and again, right? 2009, right? I went to prison. I went to jail. I beat the case, so I thought I was untouchable, right? After a year or something, right? I came home, right? The second day I'm good with second days, right? I robbed my grandmother's neighbor. He was a drug dealer and I robbed him, right? I found it justifiable. The motherfucker, somebody else told on me, right? So I ran and then I wanted to do recovery. And that's what I did. I remember 2006, my parole says every day, so I said, fuck it, I gotta do that and shit. That shit's gonna keep me out of trouble. And it did, right? It did, right? But the sponsor that I have now, right, had told me and shit at the very beginning, right? If you don't change your past when you want to do recovery, it will always be your present. And sooner or later, it's going to catch up to you. So no matter what it is and shit you have done and shit, if you're trying to get this life, right, and you're trying to do a recovery thing, like, take care of your past, man. It's all right, man. It's all right. But once you take care of your past, man, like, you can move forward, man. And that's dealing with feelings, too. You can move forward, man. You take care of it, you move forward, man. But I didn't listen to him, right? Because they give you suggestions in any type of settings that you're at, right? And here we give suggestions, and the suggestions that we give you are free. Anything you hear from somebody here that's working a type of recovery is always free. The only thing you pay for is when you don't take them. You will pay for them. Trust me when I tell you. And I pay for it, right? Because what happened was 3.5 months later down the line, right? Detectives went over there to Schenectady, snatched me up, and I went back to prison for 3.5 more years. Clean, right? So while I was in prison, for the very first time in my life, I still cleaned the whole time, right? And then I came home, but while I was in prison, I was only with my sponsor, back and forth, and he showed me unconditional love, right? And then I came home November 7th, 2013, right? And that December 31st, right? I went to a club because I'm clean. I'm doing me, right? Down here at Pearl Street, right? They pop a bottle. I'm not even a drinker. They pop a bottle. Buy your head. Buy. They pass the shit to me. I didn't even have a thought or hesitation or nothing. It was not a reservation and it was not nothing. It was just he passed it to me. I took the drink. And then 10 minutes later, I was smoking some weed right outside, right? The following fucking day, I'm worrying about my parole officer, right? I didn't tell my parole officer. I didn't tell nobody, and I didn't tell my sponsor. And obviously, I didn't tell my fucking network because I was not doing no meetings. So the whole time that I was in prison, right, and I stood clean, I didn't do no work. I just stood clean, right? So it was very easy for me to pick right up without me even fucking realizing it, right? And I got away with that one, right, because I pissed clean. I got my urine clean and shit and everything, right? But 2 months later, I was shooting fucking heroin. And the same day that I was shooting heroin and shit, my parole officer showed up to my house. And you tell me there's not a higher power that works for me, right? He didn't catch me, though. He didn't catch me. But I showed up the following day because I figured, like a natural addict and shit. I was like, fuck it, I'm already partying. I'm already in trouble. Might as well fucking show up this following day. But let me continue this motherfucker now, right? And that's exactly what I did. I showed up the following day and I told him, listen, man, I don't want to go back to prison, da-da-da-da-da. And he changed my life. That's how I ended up over here. So I'm going to tell you why I ended up here, right? I'm going to tell you what I have done to get over here and the things that this process does for you, right? So he put me in prison. He put me in accounting for 28 days, sent me to a program that some of you guys is at, right? And I thought I would never see myself in one of these programs and shit long term, right? But what I found out was, right, like I really was tired, man, and I really wanted to do things different, man, and I didn't want this shit no more, man. So I started doing some work on myself, right? Like I wasn't trying to fit in or nothing, right? And at the very beginning, I'm not going to tell you it was fucking easy, man. It was very hard, man, because you know why? like my expectations of people, how they're supposed to be, right? Because I'm very disciplined in some type of shit, and in a program is very fucking hard, right? You know what I'm saying? And you always mad at the next motherfucker because he's doing some shit. He's doing, not making this bad or doing this, so we getting locked down. Well, I can't go outside. All type of shit that I'm paying for, right? You know what I mean? It drives you motherfucking crazy. So it was really driving me crazy because I already got problems, right? You know, but I needed to surrender, bro. I really needed to surrender, and I really needed to focus on what the problem was, and the problem was me, right? It wasn't them. They are where they're supposed to be. It was me. So I started really working on myself, right? So I ended up in that I was doing that program, right? And I finally realized, right, one day, right, a few months later when I started really working on myself, right, I was sitting in a fucking med line, right, and I found out, right, that my life was going good, and I wasn't afraid of something bad happening. You ever had that feeling like, damn, when is that bad shit gonna fucking happen, right? And that's what happened to me, man. And I found out that was because I was being open-minded, man. You know, I was being open-minded and I was being truthful and shit with others, man. Not just lying to people and knowing the truth inside. Like telling you that I'm still a fucking gangster and telling you this, you know, and telling you that, right? When in reality, right, I'm a scared little fucking kid that just wants to be fucking loved, man, and want to love others, man. You know, I'm an individual that just wants to, like, you know, help the next person out, man. You know, those are the things that I really want to do. But I was afraid of you looking at me, man. You know, like, same thing over here. Like, I didn't want to come to any one of these type of associations, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, any type of 12 steps, man. I didn't want to come in because I look at you people like, oh, that's not for me, man. Like, I'm from the streets, bro. I'm hood. You know what I'm saying? I'm a fucking gangster. That was my favorite line, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm a gangster, right? I'm not going to motherfucker, right? But that's not true, man. You know what I'm saying? I realized that shit is not true, so I started working on some things, right? You know, and I ended up staying there voluntarily 6 months past my graduation. True story. But what happened was, I got a life that you can't even explain, bro. You're looking at an individual that have over 4 felonies. I'm a persistent felon, right? True story. Look me up. I'm a persistent felon, right? Listen. My boss that I work for now, I told him my life was over, right? You know what I mean? It took us 6 months to get a job, right? To get me a job. Never worked, right? Took us 6 fucking months to get. Nobody wanted to employ me, right? Nowadays, right? I got 3 years, 9 months, right? 9 months, 27 days, going on 10 months, right? I'm going to celebrate. Potentially, I might have a chance because it's never guaranteed. I'll have a chance of celebrating in March if I make it there, right? If I make it there. One day at a time, right? You know, I got people offer me jobs that you will not even understand. I resigned from a fucking job 2 weeks ago. A job that I had for over a year. And I got the fucking directors and supervisors and all type of fucking people calling me up to take my resignation out. Now this is a motherfucker that they didn't want to employ 3-4 years ago, man. And it's because of the process of recovery, man. Like, this shit works, man. But it only works when you surrender. It only works when you give it up, man. Like, I had to take that bus up and down, bro. Every single fucking morning to go to fucking work when I finally got a job. And I was so fucking grateful that I had a job. And I used to do roofing, labor, bro. I used to do labor, man. 12-hour shift, man. Humping fucking shingles, man. Up and down a fucking ladder. And I come out and go to a fucking meeting. Every day. Dirty. You know? And then I meet my fucking sponsor throughout the week, right? And then I talk, right? And then I decided to do some step work, right? Like, listen, man, step work, don't not get scared of step work, man. Like, step work is amazing. Do not believe the hype. I hate when fucking people tell people, like, you know, listen, step 4 is this, step 4. Listen, man, that shit is fucking bullshit, right? That shit is literally bullshit. It's just your story. But you have to tell somebody. You got to free yourself. If you not free yourself, you will be over here still wearing the same mask that you was wearing out there in here. Just like you could find the same person that was out there getting high with you and shit in your car or by yourself, or that you was copping drugs for, right in here. They're just saying they're clean, but everybody's not in recovery. It's the fact. It's life. And it's all right. That's where they're at, right? So I ended with this, right? Listen, if you don't believe it works, right? Give it a shot. What else do you have to lose? You don't have nothing to lose. You know? The worst thing that could happen is that you stay clean. It's the worst thing that could happen, right? But you need to surrender, right? And how do you surrender? You surrender by changing old behaviors, right? One of my main things in my, like one of my mottos is, if you hang out with broke people, you're always gonna be broke. It's a true story. If you have $100 and you're hanging around people that have no fucking money, you're gonna have no money. Do you think even this clown, the president, right now, you know, well, we're not even gonna go there. To each his own opinion, right? But you know, listen. But anyway, do you think that he got over there by hanging out with people that was hanging out in the fucking corner, or in the trap house? He hanged around politicians. You know what I mean? So you want to own the store, you gotta hang out with people that own the store. You know what I mean? Like that's what you have to do, man. So you want this recovery? Hang out with people that's getting this shit, man. Hang out with people that's doing some work, man. It's not hard, man. I'll say this, right? The first step, they say it's hard, it's just your story. The second step is just you come to believe into something, right? The third step is the most beautiful fucking step there is, man. It really is. It's so beautiful, man. That's what it got me to my spirituality aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? The fourth step, like, oh, the fourth step. Oh, the fourth step. It's just a step, man. Don't believe the hype. And you don't have to do this at nobody's pace. You take your time, but you do it correctly. You do it at your pace. You cannot get what I have. I can't get what you have. You know, you got to get it on yourself. I am very grateful for sharing over here tonight. Whatever I said, that was a lie that came from me, because I still have character defects that I work on daily. I'm far from fucking perfect. I have a lot of flaws, right? You know, but it's all right, because I learned to accept those flaws and I learned to deal with them. And I do my best not to make the same mistake every day, right? And whatever I said that was truthful, that came from a higher power. Because I know there is a higher power that's in me, right? Otherwise, I would have been dead a long time ago. Because I didn't even tell you guys about all the times that I OD'd. I didn't want to go into those war stories. Thank you for letting me share. Thanks,